Hello, angels. Welcome to what is essentially a masterclass on flirting with charm and elegance. Because guess what? Flirting is not rocket science. It's just about awareness of how to flirt, setting the intention, and practicing. It's really all it is. It's practice and repetition. That is how I became a master flirt, and that is exactly what I want to share with you today. And guess what? These techniques can be used on anyone. Yes, we want to use these on the men. And if you saw my previous video, how to date to find the love of your life, you know that sending signals is a critical component of getting men to approach you, ask you out, pursue you, so that you can then find the one. So if you're looking for the one, make sure to go back and watch that video as well. And as for today, I'm revealing all of my secrets as someone who has been married for 15 years now, someone who is a Libra rising, and someone who studied the psychology, the science of chemistry, attraction, connection, flirting. I absolutely cannot wait to share these nuggets with you so that you can literally use them today. At the core, flirting is building rapport. What the hell is that? When you're building rapport, you're building safety, familiarity, comfort, connection with the other person. And this creates a bond. This creates that connection, that emotional engagement with the other person. And spoiler alert, these techniques I would classify as light feminine, okay? I will do another video about the dark feminine, flirting for seduction. That is a different flavor. But before you could learn those skills, I need you to learn the light feminine way of flirting, building rapport. It is my belief that a lot of people actually jump to more of the seductive dark feminine flirting techniques without having mastered this foundational light feminine first, which is just to be a charming person with everyone. And that is where people go wrong. That is where the seductive techniques can look caricature-y, clowny, feel weird for everyone involved. All right, so whether you want to learn to flirt to attract your man, whether you want to learn to just be a charming person, let's jump into this masterclass. I'm going to give you 10 specific things to play with. Okay. And all 10 things are going to be related to your body and your voice because the flirting instrument is you. The charming person is you. And in order to be charming, you have to use your body and your voice in a charming way. So let's jump right in. Number one, and you heard me talk about this in my Dating to Find the One video. Open body language. That is the first step to charming, elegant flirting. You have to be available to connect. You have to be a safe person for other people to potentially initiate a conversation with you. And for that, you need that open body language. So for that, you want to have your chest open and available. You want your arms open, not closed. You want that general feeling of, I am open to be approached. And so open body language also includes facing the other person, right? If someone's speaking to you, you want to face towards them. Open body language is also leaning towards a person when you're conversing. This all conveys, I am open to you. I want to connect with you. And then I have two specific additional tricks when it comes to that open body language. And that is number one is the head tilt. Why is it so endearing when puppies and children do this? It's a very vulnerable thing, and we'll talk about vulnerability as we continue with these techniques. But that head tilt is a very vulnerable, warm, open, inviting technique. It basically tells the other person, tell me more. I'm so interested. So you want to strategically use the head tilt. I wouldn't use the head tilt too much at work, but in interpersonal relationships in the dating world, absolutely with your husband, use the head tilt. It's extremely endearing. And this other open body language technique, I never hear anyone talk about it, but it's based on evolution and biology. It is showing your wrist. Once again, vulnerability. A lot of these techniques are going to be about vulnerability. That is the light feminine. It's that openness so that other people can connect with us. And in order to do that, we have to go first. We have to be vulnerable first. And a way to signal that using our body language is by flashing the wrist. Okay, this is one of our most vulnerable body parts, similar to the neck, right? In the head tilt, the wrist. And so you want to just casually play with that in a conversation. And this works especially well if you're asking for something or like maybe you forgot your ID at home and the bouncer doesn't want to let you in and you're like, please. The wrist. The wrist has saved me in so many situations. The wrist also can act as an invitation. So let's say you are standing around and the person you're interested in isn't approaching you or starting conversation. You can just casually put the wrist out like this, or maybe play with the bracelet. And that just, it's like primal and subconscious. They're going to be drawn to you and going to want to basically protect you. Okay, when you show this vulnerable thing. And so inevitably they're going to want to talk to you. You can be at a bar and just casually put your wrist out on the bar like this. Even if you're not facing them or talking to them, this will trigger a conversation. I promise you, just go out and try it. Try the wrist and come back. All right, so that's body. Those are the body parts. Now let's get more specific. Let's narrow it down to the face, the most expressive part of the human body, right? You already know about eye contact, so I'm not going to spend a tremendous amount of time on this. But yes, eye contact is incredibly vulnerable. That's why people don't sometimes don't want to engage in eye contact. But that's also why someone who can maintain eye contact with you creates immediate connection. There's a reason why they say eyes are the window to the soul. And once again, that's vulnerable. So peer into someone's soul, lock in those eyes for a second longer than feels natural to you, and watch the magic that unfolds. You might see that other person soften. It also gives you a good opportunity to see if your man's pupils are dilating. That is a telltale sign that they like what they see. This is something I used to always be on the lookout for. Whose pupils are dilating when they look at me? Another thing is the eyebrow lift. Men do this inevitably. It's called an eyebrow flash. And so when you're looking in their eye, you catch their eye, you will see their eyebrows flash. That gives you major confidence. Yes, they like what they see. They're in. The third one is the smile. I'm so tired of all this black cat energy out there telling you to be mysterious and aloof. It is not charming. It is not attractive. It's not open and inviting. A smile is the most inviting thing you can flash to someone. And I was reminded of this when I went out to lunch with my neighbor last week, and I was just enamored how she just gently looked into my eyes and smiled. And it almost even took me aback because it is rare to have someone looking into your eyes and smiling and maybe a little nod, maybe a little head tilt. And we'll get into how to flirt using conversation soon. But saying the right things to make you talk, you just feel so connected, so engaged, you feel so safe. And that is what I mean by that rapport. So, open body language, eye contact, smile, that's 80% of the game. Okay, if you've ever watched the movie My Best Friend's Wedding with Julia Roberts and Cameron Diaz, I think that is such a beautiful portrayal of that light feminine in Cameron and dark feminine in Julia Roberts. And if you remember the scene with Cameron Diaz when she first meets Julia Roberts, she's just screaming with delight. She's so happy to meet her. That is incredibly attractive. She's extremely expressive. When her fiance started getting mad at her and she started crying, that was extremely expressive. That is extremely vulnerable, feminine. It's extremely appealing. I'm not saying to scream with delight in public. I'm not saying to cry over nothing. But what I am saying is feel free to take it up a notch. Crank up the emotions of the situation. So, for example, if someone's telling you a story, don't just be like, wow, that's crazy. How do you feel when people do that to you? Wow, that's crazy. The, your face is not matching what you're saying, right? And now watch this. Oh my God, are you serious? That was a silly acting example, but you know what I mean? Like, get more expressive. If someone's really sad, and we're going to talk about this next, matching someone's, mirroring them. But you also want to lead with your own expressiveness. That's really memorable, really engaging, especially to create that polarity in a female to male dynamic. Because men aren't allowed to feel feelings. And so they are so attracted to a woman who's feeling her feelings and expressing them outwardly. So don't be afraid to crank up the expressiveness. This whole nonchalant, aloof is not serving you if you want to flirt and charm someone and build that rapport and that memorable connection. Remember, that is the foundation. In my next video, I'll talk about how you can sprinkle some of the aloofness and mystery in, but it's not going to land as well if you don't have the foundation of being charming. And so, like I said, the next technique is mirroring, and this is based on neuroscience. We literally have something called mirror neurons in our brains, which are responsible for our survival as a species. It's how we learn, it's how we connect with other people. It's also why, in my opinion, we love shows like Dancing with the Stars, because our mirror neurons actually trick us into thinking that we are the ones dancing those crazy dances. And so mirroring is a powerful way to create familiarity and safety. So there's three main ways that you can mirror someone. Number one, do it in body language. If they lean forward, you lean forward. If they lean on one arm, you lean on one arm. And I promise you, I've done this so many times. No one has ever said, "Anna, are you copying my body language?" No one's ever said that because they're just hypnotized, mesmerized, growing deeper in connection and rapport with me. You can shake your head when they shake their head. You can open your mouth when they open their mouth, like in awe or shock. If they're using a lot of hand gestures, you can use a lot of hand gestures. If they're using none, you can use none. So play with mirroring that body language and watch how that connection deepens. Another way you can mirror is with speech patterns, okay? So, for example, if they're speaking slowly in a low voice, you can start speaking slowly in a low voice. It creates the synergy, the synchronicity. It's literally putting you on the same wavelength. And that is really, really attractive, hypnotic, connecting. Okay, this is how you flirt with charm and elegance. You create that wavelength. You can use the kind of words that they're using. They're whispering, you can start whispering. If they're getting all animated and excited, you can get all animated and excited with your voice. So yes, play with the body mirroring, play with the speech patterns, and then finally, mirror their energy. So for example, if they're feeling really enthusiastic, get in that energy with them. If they're in a naughty kind of an energy, get into that energy with them too. Match that energy, match their vibe, and see how you guys start to vibe together, okay? The next tip is powerful when done right, and that is a nurturing touch. People, especially men, are starved for touch, and there's a way to use touch even in platonic friendships and with men you're starting to get to know in a way that is charming and elegant and building rapport versus something maybe more sexual and seductive, which we will get to, like I said, in the next video. But we need the foundation of nurturing touches. You can't just jump into some crazy touches. You have to build that up. And the way that you do that is with nurturing touches. One of my favorite ways to do this is while laughing, right? Touch. Or leaning in close to say something maybe that's a little bit more private. We'll talk about vulnerability soon. And just leaning in and touching their shoulder and blah, 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 blah. Say something more vulnerable, right? So the nurturing touches are in safe zones. So that would be, here up. I mean, even the hand could be a nurturing touch, a little gentle. Oh my God, I know exactly what you're saying as you're touching their hand from across the table. So the safety zone, I would say, is probably shoulders down to the arms, back, not too low. The areas that you don't want to go into yet are neck and, below the belt. A genuinely in the moment, spontaneously placed touch, gentle pop, it's just biology. Literally, touch creates oxytocin. So this person is literally bonding to you through these subtle touches that you can do throughout the conversation. So don't be afraid. And you know what? Report me to HR. I have used nurturing subtle touches in the workplace. It builds connection. Literally, you can tell someone, "I care about you and I support you." But one arm on the shoulder placed for 3 seconds communicates that on that primal way. So we live in this world where like everybody's scared to touch anybody. And this is actually why your touch will really, really, really be more powerful in a world where we are so sterile. We're talking to phones most of the time. We rarely talk to humans. And when we talk to humans, we're still disconnected. We're still sometimes scrolling on our phones and we're not building this rapport. We're not vibing on the same wavelength. And we're certainly not, this is me touching, we're not creating that oxytocin in order to bond. All right, those were 6 flirting tips related to your body and your voice. And now we're going to go on to using your voice specifically in conversation to flirt. And notice that the majority of these tips have been the body. Has been nonverbal. Notice how important that is. This is why they say communication is 80% nonverbal and like 10% verbal or whatever it is that they say, what the studies show. Because at the end of the day, we are animals. We are these primal creatures and we are picking up so many different cues. Our hormones are responding to different things besides the words that come out of our mouth. That's why I think it's so silly when people teach flirting and they teach you specific things to say that are not natural to you and always come out cheesy and always make you feel less sexy and less confident as a result. These next tips I'm going to give you related to conversation, you can tailor to your own self and you can use them with anyone. Yes, you can use it with the boys, but you can also use this to be charming anywhere, anytime, any place. All right, first of all, let's talk about the back and forth conversation. And the number one thing people get wrong when it comes to being charming is you think that you need to put the focus on you and that you need to be the most interesting person in the room. And what I found, what makes you actually magnetic and memorable and very charming, is actually putting the focus on the other person, is actually being interested more than you are interesting. Honestly, the key to charm, the key to flirting with elegance is being interested in the other person and making that person talk as much as they can about themselves. People love to talk about themselves and they rarely get these opportunities. So when they get this opportunity with you, it really they have all these positive emotions because they're expressing themselves and then they transpose those positive emotions onto you. And funny enough, we rate people as more interesting when we get to tell them what's interesting about us. So there's no story you could tell that will be more interesting to that other person than you engaging with them and allowing them to speak more about themselves. So 3 specific ways that you can make the conversation more about them to build that rapport are number one, asking them questions. Asking them interesting questions about what they're sharing, asking them a follow-up question, asking them to go deeper. You can also just say the word, tell me more. That's one of my favorite things to say. Tell me more. If you don't have a specific question, tell me more is something you can easily insert throughout the conversation. Also, honestly, bonus tip, just pausing and not jumping in, the person will naturally keep talking. We have this feeling that we have to jump in with something smart to say, something witty, something funny, but we don't. In fact, the more space that we create, the more that other person will continue speaking. And actually, the more they speak, the more gems you will actually come out of them. And if you watched my video on how to date to find the one, you know that it's about sending these signals, aka doing everything I'm teaching you in this video, and then filtering people out. And so engaging in a charming conversation is one of the best ways to truly get to know someone. So don't be afraid to pause. Nod your head, smile, take a breath. You see how safe that feels? How hypnotic and yummy that feels? That is flirting. Creating a deep connection that someone doesn't want to be pulled apart from. That is it. And then the last thing you can do to create that connected conversation is to rephrase, right? So if someone tells you a story, instead of hitting them with the, oh, that's crazy, what you can do is paraphrase what they shared with you and express it the way you received it, right? So if someone tells you a story about their boss who was being unfair and then they didn't get the promotion, you could be like, wow, it sounds like you were trying really hard and then you got like shafted and it's just so not fair. And they're like, yeah, it isn't fair. And then that keeps them going. So to be the best conversationalist, the key is to actually keep the other person speaking. And that gives you so many naughty opportunities to collect data and to really get to know this person, which is valuable information for you, especially if you're making decisions on who to date, who to filter out, etc. All right, I have three final conversation tips. The first one is throughout this conversation, as this person is divulging all these secrets and details and stories, you want to extract similarities because rapport, remember, is all about safety and familiarity. This is why people with familiar things, similar values, similar lifestyles, this is why they gravitate towards each other because even though we like to say opposites attract, nature and biology would say that that is not true. Familiarity is what makes us actually attracted to someone. And actually, you might have seen studies where partners will resemble the other person's opposite sex parent. Or some people actually look like siblings. This sounds gross, but it's just the truth. We gravitate towards what is familiar. That is what makes us feel safe and comfortable. And so, in the process of this stimulating conversation where you're asking questions, tell me more, paraphrasing what they shared, you also want to extract what's similar. So, if they're like blah, 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 and then I studied abroad in Italy, oh my gosh, I studied abroad in Italy too. This works for men, friends, coworkers, everyone. We all bond over these little connections, no matter how small or how big they are. And so you want to point out these connections. It's a really, really powerful technique. The second thing you might want to consider doing is giving an authentic compliment. This works so powerfully. I mean, men literally get no compliments ever. Whatever compliment you throw a man, he's going to remember for the rest of his life. So you can't do this wrong. I do recommend being authentic. You don't want to do something crazy. Like you don't want to tell your average man that like he's the most handsome man you've ever seen. Like that's not true, right? But you can, for example, compliment him on maybe something he's wearing. We can talk more about how to trigger a man's protective instinct, which is key to making him commit to you for a lifetime. Let me know if you want a video on that. But if you wanted to do something like that, you would compliment more of his character. Because guess what? When you compliment, for example, wow, I feel so comfortable with you. I know I just met you, but I just feel so really safe with you. I feel like really protected in your company. Woo, girl! He ain't letting you go. He ain't letting you go because he wants to be the king, the protector, the hero. And you just triggered that shit for him right there. So that's what you want to do with these compliments. You can even compliment something based on a story. So, for example, going back to the tiny story I mentioned where the person was complaining about their boss, they didn't get the promotion, you could be like, it sounds like you're really passionate about your work. And it sounds like you're also just so resilient to all these ups and downs you've been experiencing in your career. And I really admire the fact that you haven't given up. Put it in your hands, okay? So don't be afraid to drop an authentic compliment. Once again, this whole like black cat, mysterious, aloof, that shit is not memorable. And also, it's not going to work if you're always aloof. Imagine dropping a compliment like that and then being aloof. Ooh, suddenly he has a reason to chase. Why would he chase if you've been aloof the whole time? So yeah, that's coming in video too. So don't worry. All right, I have a final one, and that is strategic vulnerability. Then that is, we've been talking about a lot of vulnerability here, vulnerability in body language, vulnerability in what you share. Strategic vulnerability is extremely endearing and memorable and makes you more human, especially in the flirting and the dating scene. Everyone is always trying to make themselves look better than they are. Everyone is posturing, and we also feel as women that we have to be these confident queens in order to be sexy and attractive and pursued. No. Vulnerability is intoxicating, especially if you are a high achieving, successful woman. Him getting a little glimpse of your feelings and maybe your insecurities strategically, that's the key part. We're not like trauma dumping or giving him any opportunity to potentially abuse what we're sharing, use it as ammunition. We're using strategic vulnerability. So you might want to pick something that is a small to medium insecurity that you probably have shared with your friends. It's not a big deal. This is not some secret you're finally divulging the way you would like to a therapist one day. So maybe this is a speed dating scenario and you actually divulge, I'm actually really, really shy. And so it's really hard for me to even come here, but I'm really glad I did because I met you and I just feel so comfortable with you. Bam, bam, bam. Do you see how I just combined a compliment with a vulnerable share? Strategic, right? So he's not gonna turn around one day and be like, you're shy. I don't want you, right? You're sharing something that is not a big deal, but shows that vulnerability and it creates that emotional connection and creates that hero protective instinct that I just alluded to, which is critical. Let me know in the comments if you want that video. All right, well, there you have it. I promise you, you don't have to worry about anything else when it comes to flirting. Just think about what I shared in terms of creating safety, familiarity, and connection. And think about these 10 specific strategies I shared with you or techniques. And really, it's about awareness. So you already have that now. Trust that you have the awareness of what it takes to be a good flirt, to be a charming person with men and just generally in the world. And what I want you to do is to be more intentional. So when you are out and about, you can do this at Starbucks, you could do this in the gas station, you could do this at work, you can do this with your friends. Flirt, be charming, build that rapport, practice the body language, practice the mirroring, practice the conversational things. Because I promise you, being an incredible flirt is just practice. The reason why I had three best friends fighting over me, threatening to throw people overboard on a cruise ship, the reason why I went to a Chippendales show and had a Chippendale pursuing me instead of me throwing myself at him is because of these flirting skills. And all it was I learned about this. Like I said, I studied this and then I just experimented, put it into practice. And that is what I challenge you to do, my dear angel. If you have absolutely any questions, pop those in the comments and also stay tuned. It's going to be ready soon. There's also a next video on flirting available. This one is in the dark feminine sphere and it's about flirting to seduce. Okay, but this video is the foundation. You need to know how to tap into your light feminine flirting energy before we can sprinkle in some of the dark feminine naughtier tactics. Okay. Anyway, I will see you in the next one.